Hi, and welcome to Module 6 of Introductory iPhone Development. Um, in this module, in this module we're going to, for the first time, look at an application that involves more than a single view. We're actually going to use the single view template to create our example app, which I'm going to demo in just a second. But I would urge you to read the first few pages of the chapter, which talk about a number of the different templates for multi-view applications. And we're going to look at those in subsequent modules and in the following course. And you can see the various approaches to handling multi-view with sort of less trouble than what we're going to do here. But what I want to do in this chapter is expose all the machinery necessary to swap between a couple of views. And so I'll just demo with the app over here. There are actually 3 view controllers involved in this app. There's a parent view controller, which has this button that switches between 2 views. That's actually a toolbar, and we've only got one button on the toolbar, but it's handling the switching. And then we have 2 content views, one yellow and one blue. Each one has a button, and all the buttons do is cause an alert to pop up, but they're different. And so you can see that by the different text that pops up when the buttons are pressed. So, and everything sort of works continuously. So we're going to build an app from the single view template where we instantiate all the stuff that you need to make this work, so you can see what all is going on and sort of appreciate having a bunch of it handled for you with some of the multi-view templates in the next module. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So we're going to create a new Xcode project. We're going to call it View Switcher. And again, we'll use the single view app template. So I've already got one. Let me call it View Switcher 2. Normally when I demo the app for you in advance, I'll call it the name the book uses and then test, but I forgot to this time, so I'll have to use that name, but that's all right. And we get our usual template. And in particular, we get a class, a view controller class that's linked to the main storyboard. And we're going to create a number of view controller classes in this app. And so the first thing I need to do is get rid of the existing one. So I'm going to select it here, delete it. I don't want to just remove the reference. I want to move it to the trash. So it's just gone out of our project now. I need to add another one. And actually, it looks like you can't see it. I'm selecting from the File menu at the top of the screen in Xcode and New, and I want a new file. I get a wizard for it. The right thing is a Cocoa Touch class. Cocoa Touch is the user interface classes for iOS. All the classes we've looked at so far are Cocoa Touch classes, so we'll use that. And we're going to call it, this one we will call switching the switching view controller, because that's what it's going to do. Now, the first time I've been making view controllers for the last little while here in my Xcode, but you haven't. So this probably, you will have to make sure you set this up to be a subclass of the proper thing. I think UI view is the default, but you want it to be a subclass of UI view controller. Make sure that create xib file is not checked, because we're going to use storyboards, not the old interface builder files, to instantiate this view controller. And we'll create it. You can just use the defaults there. And I'm going to drag it inside the View Switcher 2 folder here, because that's where I want all my my view controllers to sit. all my classes to sit. So what I want to do now is in my storyboard make this view controller that it gives me, the one, this arrow here means this is the one, this is the scene that's going to be thrown up on the screen when the app starts. It's not been a big deal in our previous apps because it's the only one we had, so you didn't need to pay any attention to it. We're going to have multiple scenes in our storyboard now. Each one of these sort of screen shots, or not shots, that's not the right word, but screen layouts is called a scene in storyboard language. So we'll select it, and I'm going to go to the identity inspector for it. It's a custom class, and the custom class is switching view controller, the one I just wrote. And any class that you've added, as well as the default classes that could be used, will show up in that list. Another thing we're going to use later on, we don't need it here, but if certain methods that do things with the storyboard need an identifier for view controllers, we don't need one for this one, so I'm going to leave it blank, but I'm going to create 2 more view controllers in just a second, and for those I am going to instantiate the storyboard ID so that I can refer to them with some methods that manipulate what's the transition between views. So let me create a couple more files while I'm here creating files. So File, New, File. This is going to be another Cocoa Touch file. And I'm going to call this one the Blue View Controller. And this is a class name. So one file per class for Swift. So all the other defaults are fine. And you can see I get a Blue View Controller.swift file here, and it looks like the switching view controller in terms of the stuff that's instantiated for me by default. And let's go ahead and make the other one, the yellow view controller, as well. So these are my classes for the view controllers. In general, you do want a separate class for each of your view controllers. We're only going to have one instance of each of these classes, but we'll create separate classes for them just to make things completely independent, so that we'll show that we've got separate code running for the blue one and for the yellow one. And while we're at it, let's, we'll come back and instantiate those classes with scenes in the storyboard in a minute. But we get just sort of a pointer that we're going to have to come back and do that. So, but let's start working on our root view controller. So in this class, I want variables for my 2 content view controllers. So I'm going to call them lowercase blue view controller and yellow view controller. I'll make them private variables. I only want to be able to manipulate them from within here. So I'm defining a name here, blue view controller, and the type of that is going to be a blue view controller. And it's going to be an optional because it won't be, it may never get instantiated actually. If we don't ever click the switch view button, one or the other of these may never be instantiated. We're going to use a process called lazy loading, whereby we don't create all the views unless we're actually going to use them. That is, unless the user clicks the switch view controller but the switch views button at the bottom. It would help if I spelled that right. Misspelled yellow view. what have I done wrong here? Hello view controller, looks like it's spelled correctly. Oh, I misspelled it here. Okay, so there are my variables. And I'm going to go ahead and instantiate an action function, action method, to switch between the views. This is going to be the action method for that switch views button at the bottom of the main view. And the sender is going to be that bar button, which is called a bar button item. I haven't connected it to anything yet, so this is blank here. I haven't filled it in either. So we've got to do those things. So another forward pointer for stuff that we need to write. Let's go ahead and put that toolbar in our switching view controller. So we'll go to the storyboard. We've got our one scene here which implements switching view controller, and let me get a toolbar. And let me scroll this a little bit better. So I'm going to plop it at the bottom of this view. And I need to set some constraints. Let's go ahead and I can change the items. I'll make sure the item is selected up here. Go to its attributes inspector. I'm going to change its title to switch views. And while I'm here, let me link that to its action method. So I've control dragged from buttons to code before. I'm going to control drag now from the button, and I've got my I think the wrong thing got selected here. And I'm going to make sure that the button is selected here. Control drag up to the view controller here, and the action I'm looking for is there. Switch views is the name of the method I wrote to be an action method, and then with sender means that I've got that sender argument for it. So I have a pointer to the control that caused the action to be sent. So I'm going to select that. If I go back now to my view controller code, I see this circle's filled in, and I could also go back to the storyboard, go to the make sure that I've got the button selected, go to the connections inspector, and I see that that's connected up to the switching view controller. So I think we're good in terms of the toolbar button working. I'm going to set some constraints here. I want the toolbar to be 0 on its bottom left and right, so that means it'll come right up to the edges of that parent view controller, and I'm not going to constrain it to the margins. I want it to go all the way to the edge. Okay, so I've added those constraints. So now it's time to put in some code, and I'm gonna do that in the next video. So where we're going to go from here, we'll go back to our switching view controller. I'm going to put code here in view did load, and implement this action method, and I'll see you in the next video.